You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. In this show, we go beyond the campfire stories to bring you firsthand encounters from people who say they've seen something impossible, from backwoods trails and remote mountain haulers to quiet farms and crowded highways. The stories come from everywhere, and each one leaves us with more questions than answers. These are the voices of the people who've lived it, so settle in, because today you'll hear another account that just might change the way you see the woods forever. So stay with us. All right, Bigfoot Society, we've got the privilege of talking to an individual. His name is Brother Nature today, and he's got a very interesting, really past that he's gone through. There's a few things that I want to make sure that we present about what he's been involved with so far over the years. Brother Nature has a 35-year experience as a naturalist, has a master's degree in science education, Bachelor of Science Parks and Recreation, and a AA in Art. His bioregions of study everywhere from the Sierra Nevada mountains, Yosemite to Quincy to, I believe it's the Marin Headlands, and all sorts of ecosystems in between. But Brother Nature, if I was off on any of that, definitely let me know. Or if there's anything you'd like to add, feel free to do so.
No, that's a good start for us right there. That's what I've been doing.
Let's start with 35 years as a naturalist is an incredible amount of time to be, 35 years is an incredible amount of time to be focused on anything, really. What got you first into being a naturalist and a tracker?
Well, wow, that we'll have to go way back. That's even in my DNA. I'm Native American, Yaqui. However, my dad is actually, who is not Native American or Yaqui. He got me interested actually in a lot of the being a naturalist. I just want to relay a story way back in the day how I got interested in the creature we know as Bigfoot or Sasquatch. I actually call it Sasquatch, but it was the Patterson-Gimlin film at Bluff Creek here in California, and I believe they shot that in 1967. And in 1968, that film came out in the big screen in Fremont, California, at the Center Theater, and way back then, that screen was humongous. It's like 25 to 30 feet by 50 feet. So it's a gigantic screen. And as a little boy, just like a lot of little boys, into all the animals, and I have little dinosaur figures, and at the time, gorillas were like one of my favorite animals in the world. And then I saw that Sasquatch video, and I'm an 8-year-old boy. And, that left an impression on me, actually. So indirectly, you might say that Sasquatch helped me become a naturalist science teacher. Even though I was only like 9 years old after that, my family liked to go camping a lot. I just started always looking at everything after that. And once you start tracking, it's not that you're tracking a Sasquatch, you're tracking anything. You're looking at anything. A duck track is a beautiful thing. So that actually began my naturalist career, even though it took me many years to go to school and then get myself a science degree and then get the job that I wanted to have, which is naturalist. I didn't really want to do anything else. I'm out in nature, and that fresh air, clear my mind, body, spirit, keeps me in shape, keeps my mind in shape. And anywhere you want to branch off in nature, you could go. You want to study botany, it's like forever. If you want to study birds, any of the sciences are found outside, and that's where I was at with that. So I wanted to make sure at some point in my life I was a naturalist. So sure enough. But before that, check this out. I had to put myself through school. And luckily, once again, my dad came through. He owned his own business. So all these little interconnecting things and finally took me to being a naturalist. And one of my favorite things, besides tracking animals, which is like my number one thing I like to do, is that I actually am pretty good at aquatic biology. So, but, you know, I've been doing my job a long time, so you got to know a little bit about everything. And yeah, it's like a never ending story for me on that. Even at this age, at 65, I'm still going out and learning new things and being part of nature, even though I'm like I say semi-retired.
But as we were talking about before the show started, I mean, you are literally on your way out right now to go somewhere, and you were able to spend a few minutes with us today, which we're gratefully thankful for. You know, going back to when you saw the PG film as an 8-year-old boy, the Patterson Gimlin film, what was the conversation like about what you had seen up on that big screen when you left that auditorium that day with your father?
Whoa, interesting question. My dad, he was blown away at that too. He had never seen anything like that himself. So, I'm going, Dad, with that, there's something called Bigfoot in the woods. And he was just going, maybe I saw it. It was like, wow, but I'll tell you something. My dad was a big Bigfoot believer after that. And, my family, we always went to Yosemite every summer forever for the longest time. I mean, so when we would be driving to Yosemite, I'm looking right outside the window, and any campfire we had after that, at some point there was a mention of Bigfoot. So he was, and then some people would laugh and do this and that, but you know what? Deep down, me and my dad, we knew it was real. So, and I'm gonna let you know something too. My dad, he said, and I quote this. He goes, "If there's anybody that's out there that's going to discover Sasquatch, it's going to be my son.
Why do you,
He's going to be the one to discover him."
why do you think he would say that?
Well, I'm a tracker. That all these, it's right from then. When you're going through elementary school and junior high, you don't have those kind of classes, right? They don't have tracking classes. But fortunately, I live in the East Bay of California in the San Francisco Bay Area. I had a creek really close to my house, and it's connected right to the hills. So I go left, I go to the San Francisco Bay, I go right into the hills. So, as a youngster, I'm heading up there both ways and looking at, I'm not plaster casting tracks at that point in time because I didn't know how to do it. However, tracking animals and going uphill and going up here, going to see this. What track is that? It's just something that I never stopped doing. And then I always have plaster up here. I have my tracking bag right now, like we were talking just a little while ago. I'm ready to go out just a little bit right now. Getting a little, I get all anxiety ridden sometimes.
Most people, when they get really intrigued by the Sasquatch subject, there's an incident that happens that makes things completely real for them. Was there a situation that happened, after you had seen the Patterson Gimlin film, and then maybe a few years later, was there something that happened that made that extremely real in your life?
Well, I'll tell you, it took many years for that realization to happen. I mean, I've been looking all over for them. I look for credible reports, right? I was a backcountry naturalist in the Sierra Nevada mountains for 15 years. So anytime I heard a report of this on my time off, I'd take a drive and go hiking and take a look around. So, well, yeah, there were times where I came across some really beautiful tracks. And as a tracker, check this out. My motto is really simple: tracks don't lie, and neither do I. All animals out there have a signature track, and you know, I've been tracking black bears in the Sierra Nevada mountains forever. I did some tracking in the Snake River, Wyoming, of grizzly bears one time in my life, and here I am in the Sierra Nevada mountains, and all of a sudden I come across these gigantic track. So right then I found the track that I was looking for, right? And then I worked in a camp. Was working in a camp. This happened about 7 years ago now. And my son came over. My little grandson. He was just an infant at that time, and brought his wife. And I was in cabin 1, and they were in cabin 2. I was all happy to see my family. And so I had to tuck in early because I had to go to work the next morning. And I told my son I was going to make breakfast in the morning. And then when I got up, they were gone. They went to the nearest town, which is Truckee. And I called them up. I'm like, hey, what's going on? How can we go? Where'd you guys go? And my dad, my son, oh, well, Dad, we saw Sasquatch in your camp last night. Hooked his head. He stepped off from the side of trees. He was 8 foot tall. He goes, I didn't want to have my wife or Charlie even near it. I didn't know anything about it. Put him in the car. He took off. They slept in the car and trucked it. And he told me, he goes, I didn't want to tell you right then, Dad, because I know you're not leaving anywhere, man. He goes, and he was right. He did the right thing too. Get my grandson out of there, and him and his wife. Stay safe. Always go out there, stay safe as you can. And I went in that area, and I did a little tracking right there. Now, this 6,500 foot elevation, and he's walking along the tree line, a lot of broken branches, and he's stepping on cones. Couldn't make a really good track because they're right there. The landscape is exposed. The igneous andesite is everywhere, so he could step on anywhere and go in any direction. It's going to be an extremely hard thing to find him. So all these things were adding up, right? And I'm still working in the Sierra Nevada mountains, in a place called the Desolation Wilderness. And right behind my tent there is nothing but wilderness. There isn't even an electric wire. It's just an amazing, beautiful wilderness, and that's why I'm a naturalist, man. I just love waking up in a crisp morning and taking a look out there. And, it's just totally vibrant. Everything's alive, including me, including the Sasquatch, including other things that are out there that I have seen that have not been seen too much.
That area is just outside of Lake Tahoe, right?
Yeah, yeah, Tahoe National Forest, Desolation Wilderness. However, you know, that entire area from Yosemite all the way to Quincy, that's the Sierra. There's things that go on. That's a long stretch of wilderness and a lot of carrying capacity for many, many creatures. There's a lot of bear in there, but there's other things, like I said, that, today we're talking more about Sasquatch. Another time I'll tell you another thing. I come across some other things I don't really like talking about too much.
Oh, sure.
But
I understand that and definitely respect that. So you're talking about going from really Lake Tahoe, I mean, all the way up through Plumas National Forest. It looks like if you're looking at Quincy, California.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
Sasquatch has been spotted in Plumas, has been spotted in Shasta.
Oh, yeah.
Or, I've gone to Shasta. Now, look I'm a naturalist, right? So I'm just happy to be out in nature. I just happen to have my bag with me. It has everything I need in there. I'm happy to get a beautiful little bird track. So whatever creature is out there, I look for the best tracks that I possibly can get, and I love the art behind it. And it just happens that, okay, Sasquatch does come, he's in my collection. And right now I have 18 Sasquatch tracks. And like we were talking about earlier, I'm actually going on my own little expedition later on today. I've been on it the last 4 days. I'm an older guy now. I'm 65 years old, so I'm kind of like more or less go out during the day. In my youth, when I was a young man like you, I'd stay out all night. But so I go out there during the day, all day, and see what I can find. And in this general area where I can't tell you where this is at right now,
Right.
I cannot tell you where I'm at. This is where I've seen Sasquatch. Sasquatch has seen me. Um, I have 18 tracks, and believe it or not, there's no way in the world I could plaster cast these tracks without the Sasquatch allowing me to do so. So it's just an unusual thing.
I am really intrigued by the statement you just said about not being able to cast tracks without Sasquatch allowing you to do so.
Oh yeah, this is. Can't tell you everything, but I
I
can tell
gotcha.
you. I can tell you a lot of the things. Okay, I'm gonna tell you about this one particular Sasquatch. Is like even right now, like I said, I'm hot on his trail again, and he's hot on mine. And what happened was my godson, he's a trucker. He's skeptic also. You know, even though I kept telling him, you know, everybody likes to take jabs at me because oh no, you're a big dumb. You believe in Sasquatch and everything like that. I'm going, hey, you know what? You watch TV too much, really. And I don't even want to get into all that. I just spend 85% of my time is outside. So anyway, that's where I'm at with that. So my godson, he's a trucker. He's going through here. He's making a right turn into this town, and he stops because he's got his high beams on, and there's a Sasquatch looking into a trailer. He stops, he puts the high beams are on there, the Sasquatch stands up, covers his eyes, darts into the woods. So my godson, he is now a firm believer. And he calls me up and he's going, oh boy, we don't have any 12-foot gorillas in California, do we? So right then I go, bro, give me the coordinates right now, man. I need those now. He gave them to me. Within 7-8 hours here, I was here, found the trail where the Sasquatch was at. And then, okay, here's where, I don't know, you might think of the metaphysical way, the Native American way, the spiritual way, my way. Okay, we have traditions in our native culture that say, okay, if you coming into a different territory, you give offerings, There's tobacco, we do a tobacco ceremony and, we smudge ourselves with sage and we give offerings. That's how I communicated with the Sasquatch. So I didn't take any weapons with me. And, other than, I have a great 14-inch knife that I have right here on my belt. I carry a staff with me in my backpack, easily accessible as my machete. Those are the only three weapons I have that I take. if I even call them weapons, they're digging things. So, just clear. I've never had to use anything, fortunately. When I walk around in nature, I carry a musical instrument with me called a clapstick. And along with a few, songs that I sing, and usually keeps the wild animals away, and then I'm able to do what I need to do. So I made an offering to that Sasquatch, and it took it. And man, I don't even know how to explain. I don't even know how. It's even tough for me to talk about. I'm getting, I love it because I did it, but I was actually within feet of this Sasquatch, and I heard his voice. It's able to. It certainly does not speak English. However, it can let you know what it's talking about and what's on its mind. And it has an incredible, humongous, guttural voice that will go right through you. If you're not prepared for it, you could have a heart attack. It's that intense. So, this was, like I was telling you earlier, I was able to plaster cast 18 tracks. This had happened right after a 5-day downpour of rain too, by the way. So the ground was really saturated in an oak woodland area. And what the Sasquatch was doing right there is I found his feeding grounds is what happened. Because, when you're walking through the forest, you look for abnormalities. And, if okay, like I said, I've been doing my thing 35 years or more. I go in the forest a lot, so I'm always looking. And I do a lot of bear tracking, so I'm looking for scrapes, scat, everything. And yeah. So anyway, give me refocus. Ask me the
So,
other questions.
oh, I have so many. You mentioned really quick guttural voice. So, is that the kind of thing like when you hear that, when that's spoken around you, does it physically affect your body as well in any ways?
Well, man, the Sasquatch. Okay, we're talking about the first stock of humans. They're the original. And they're so big, and their their neocortex and their pineal glands are larger and more well developed than us humans. And you know, like I was telling you earlier, I don't know all the answers to all of this. I just know what happened and what he did to me and my experience of it. But I do know a little bit about my own pineal gland and my own, cortexes and other creatures like whales and things like that. The older animals, they're more incredibly developed than us. Even the crocodiles are probably even smarter than us. And they sure are in their own environment. We're no match to any kind of creature like that. Well, like I was saying just a minute ago, it can communicate, and I'll give you an example. Only the octaves are higher; they're way higher. Unless the Moreland that Moreland tape from the Sierra Sounds, he got it.
Oh, Ron Moorhead, yeah.
Yes, that one. Yeah, yeah, he got it. 'Cause it's
Have you heard
and
that before?
I'm telling you, that's what he told me.
Oh.
Before that, though, like I was telling you, they could do things. So when when I was walking through the forest, I got a major headache, and I don't get headaches. So that's when I knew that he was around me. And I said, You know, okay, I'm a mile and a half deep in the woods here. You know, I don't have any camera crew. I don't have anybody with me. I don't want anybody with me. This is between me and the Sasquatch. You know, I'm more than happy to go out there right now and do what I'm doing. Because check this out, I'll go a little deeper on you. I was performing what is known as the Yaqui Death Lodge, which means that, okay, I'm more than happy to see you, man. If you're going to rip me up, you can. But I am going to see you. And that's what I did. So when he came at me, he gave me that massive headache, and I let him know, I know you're here. And he let me go. He released it. And I'm sitting in my lodge, what is known as a lodge. We'll talk about it another time. Maybe some of your listeners know what my lodge is, but I'm not leaving that lodge. I'm a mile and a half deep in the woods, and here he is. Hearts are racing, pumping. Everything you could ever imagine is going on. The only thing you know, yeah, it's like, so that's when he came up with me with his language, his guttural talk, and asked me, "What the heck am I doing there? What am I doing here? I'm like, oh, what are you doing here?" Yeah, you know what? It might sound incredible, and I know that there's a lot of people, but check this out, Jeremiah. I haven't even shared this with very many people at all, and only some of my closest friends know because they know, right? They're not. I I want. Oh man, I just had a deep conversation with one of my childhood best friends on who was asking me not to do this anymore. That he goes, "You don't have to do it anymore. You proved it, bro. You don't have to do it anymore." But that's a different story. I appreciate his concern, but I do have to do it more. This is what I do, and and I finally made contact, so I'm going out there and doing it again. See if I can do it again. So anyway, the Sasquatch asked me what the heck I'm doing there. And I told him, I'm here to see you. And it told me, there's many of us. Asked me if I was a killer. He goes, you're no killer. I come with nothing. I tell you, I ain't never seen the greatest expression of face on an animal in my entire life. The way he looks at me is just something I just will never get out of my head. However, check this out. I put myself in that position, so I feel good about that. As I feel good. I feel good and strong about that. So it's okay. But I do know some people out there that have post-traumatic stress disorder. And I had that to a certain extent, but that's another story from like 6 years ago that we'll talk about another time.
Mm.
But I'm feeling way better now. I'm feeling better. Now that I've come across Sasquatch, I feel much, much better. Sleeping better at night. And so anyway, check this out. I came across this feeding grounds, and it's an entire area. It's not, when a bear eats, they have claws, so when they're digging into the earth, they pull things backwards. They pull things back. This Sasquatch is ripped into this entire hillside. I'm talking maybe 50, 60 yards in a straight line. And he put his hands inside these rocks and he was pulling out boulders bigger than bowling balls, ripping them out, picking them up, throwing them in front, pushing them back. He was grabbing rodents, sleeping snakes, grubs, squirrels, mice, voles, shrews, anything that was in there. worms. They were edible because they got to eat, man. And he went downtown and he ripped it to shreds. It was like when I saw it, I was going, I hit it, I hit it, I hit the jackpot. And he left the most beautiful footprints. But what tripped me out, well, the whole thing tripped me out. What can I say? But check this out. He put in his hands, when he was getting into the earth, he was stomping the feet and grabbing with hands. I have 18 tracks of this creature, and I have most of them are of hands. Because, right, remember you mentioned to the group earlier, I have an AA degree in art. So when I look at that, I was going, man, the whole thing was art. Big, gigantic footprints, big, humongous handprints, cupping, feet and hands together. To me, I never, of course, I've never ever seen anything like that. And nobody else has in the world other than possibly, I don't even know, Russell Accord from Ronnie LeBlanc, Dr. Mariah Mayer. They might have come across something like that. I'm not sure. They're in deep woods like I am, but they got a lot of people with them, and they lights with them. Not me, not this time. Anyway, yeah.
I know a lot of people listening to this are trying to make some kind of contact themselves in a respectful way. So do you have any advice for someone who's trying to go out to an area and make some sort of connection?
Okay. Now, look, I'm a professional naturalist, right?
Yep.
Other folks out there, I recommend you going with only one other person, no more than three, because there's safety in numbers for one thing. And don't take any weapons like a gun. They know what they are. You go in there with showing a gun, they're going to go further away. They see us way before. They know you're in their territory, and they know who's peaceful, and they know who's the troublemaker. We're all troublemakers to them. They don't feel bad. He's mad, man. They don't want us up there. And I'm on, yeah. So anyway, don't be scared. You're there. You bet. If you get a credible report and you go in there, just don't back down. Go there and then have your intent, man. And then look at it. I can't give you. I'm gonna give you the biggest secret of them all, I guess. My Sasquatch here loves peanut butter and raisin sandwiches. Loves them.
Oh, wow. So do you just leave those different places in the area then as like offerings or?
Yeah, so I know he's in an area. They're watching me. They're watching what we do. So they know if you're a friend or foe. So my offering, man, I'm gonna give you this really delicious little treat that even little kids love here. And sure enough, you put them in a certain spot. You come back the next day. Don't put a trail camera up, man. They know what those are. You have to gain trust with them. They know things. No box. He told me, no box on tree, because I already asked it. When I go over there, I asked it. I have to ask everything. Everything has to be done slow. Check this out. God bless their souls, Diana Fossey and Jane Goodall. Jane Goodall. Oh, I loved her to pieces, seen every single footage, over and over and over. Dr. Meldrum, all of his Sasquatch tracks. I'm a student of tracks. So I'm just ready. I'm just ready to do my thing. So little by little, he came, and sure enough, got a little closer and closer, closer. Till they They know that, okay, this dude, he's our friend. And that's what I'm trying to get at. Say, hey, you know what? We're not all trying to mess you up here. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to stop people from coming and hassling you. I hate clear cutting. I go, and I'm a forester. I was in the California Conservation Corps for a couple of years. Every whole of my life, is just surrounded about nature. So, nature preservation and conservation is where I'm at. And that includes habitat for animals like black bear and the Sasquatch, which share habitat here, along with the wolves here and the mountain lions here and the packs of coyotes here. This is a tough place I'm at. Very tough place indeed. But I wouldn't want it any other way. I love it
Yeah.
right here, man. And
So really, it sounds like the connection it needs to be focused on connection, and if you're bringing stuff out there like audio recorders and video recorders, you're on the wrong path, is what I'm kind of picking up.
well, like I was saying, even choose your friends wisely
Mm-hmm.
as humans, right?
Sure.
So they're really weary of us. You can't, they're looking at you in the forest. You don't even know they're looking. They could climb trees very well. They could look down on you without any problem. Check this out. So I want to tell you a different story about a Sasquatch track over there in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Right? I was with a friend of mine, and man, big dummy. I left my tracking bag in the motel room. We just got there. We want to stretch out, but I got a credible report of this area. So I go, let's go over here and check it out. So we do. And sure enough, there's a massive 19-inch track on the ground, just one track. Like he stepped down off the tree, put his foot on the ground, and then he climbed back up the tree. And when I saw that, and my buddy saw it first. So take a look at this. We got to go back to this. We got to go back to what I'm going to be. So anyway, check this out. The pine cones, put a little rock thing to make sure we come right back to the same place. Put a stick right there because it's a little hike in. So man, I run. We run all the way back to the motel room, get my backpack, go back. Check this out. The Sasquatch is watching us somewhere. He came down there, took out the rock pile we had, the stick, threw the pine cone away, and wiped away his track, and then went back up in a tree. My buddy's all, well, and I was just laughing. All I could do is laugh at that. Yeah, but that one happened. That was a pretty good one, I thought. Yeah, good one.
That is pretty cool. I mean, I've heard, talking to people over the years, I've talked to people in West Virginia where they were casting a track and a tree almost got pushed over on them, and then they heard stuff all around them, or track casts being stolen from people in Oregon around Oak Ridge. I mean, all sorts of weird stuff I think can happen for sure.
they're, they're tricksters. Check this out. So right after I gave him my first sandwich, he left me a pile of rocks in a pyramid. And I have all this photographed and videoed. I release it little by little. Man, we want to just preserve the forest and leave.
Mm.
I don't even know what to say, man. I mean, I do it too, right? But I'm not doing it for harassment. I just love tracks. And then now that I have the Sasquatch tracks, I'm like the happiest camper in the world. I have tracks, and I'm more than willing to share them with anybody to look at. As a matter of fact, this is where I'm at with my tracks right now. You know, I need these tracks laser scanned and X-rayed, and I actually need a partner in that. I don't know where to go. I'm more like a simple dude. Nature, that's why they call me Brother Nature. My name is Nuxium, my Native American name, and, my Christian given name is Steven, but everybody knows me as Nuxium Nature. And, my goal is 25 Sasquatch tracks, and I have 18. I don't want to brag about stuff or anything like that. I just have them, and I would just like to get them, like I said, laser scan. I'm a scientist, right? Check this out, Master of Science. This is the reason why I have so many tracks. Because you need to mix and match when you're doing science. You can't have one track and say, look, I got one track. You got to have more than one thing of evidence in order to take a look at them and analytically look at as many as you possibly can, see the similarities. Now, these tracks, the hand tracks, have dermal ridges on them, and so do the foot tracks. So a lot of the time, even the angle of repose on when he hit the earth, they're 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 all different. However, they all have something similar, and they were all plaster casted on wet oak woodland. So, they're not the track that the Patterson tracks that were on sand and on the bank of the creek. These things are deep woods, and they're but you could still see the bend of the toes, the heel, the whole foot. And I have my favorite track. I call them all my favorite tracks. They're all my favorite tracks, but I brought one here. I left my 17 tracks elsewhere, and I have one here to show whoever needed, to see it, or to show whoever it while I go and track. So, I still have a few. I'm here in this one spot where I had the encounter. It was 3 months ago, and he was here 2.5 weeks ago, according to the tracks that I see on the ground right now. They're weathered. They have grass growing out of them. They're not really good enough to plaster cast. I'm so bummed. So that's why I went out to a little further place where I saw them before. And, hopefully he's going to come back and remember me. I'm pretty sure he will. So I'm pretty anxious to go and take a look at this area where I was yesterday, right along the river. Just a stunning sight. So anyway, I'll tell you, I'm doing something that's entirely incredibly dangerous, and I don't recommend anybody doing it. Like I said, I'm a professional naturalist, and you folks out there, check this out. You might not even hear from me again. I could go out there and get ripped apart by who knows what. However, I'm prepared, like I said, to defend myself against anything. I'll leave DNA there. If I get ripped apart, whatever's going to rip me apart, I'm gonna get them too, man. So you might find their blood splat, whatever. However, the Creator has had me here all this entire time, and I thank the Creator so much, and every other creature in the forest for having me.
Man, it's
so. I want to let you know what I've been telling you is the absolute truth, and like I say, tracks don't lie, neither do I.
Absolutely. I mean, I have, let's say, one more question for you, just because I know that you are literally headed out the door soon. You had mentioned a lot earlier before in the interview about how like the neocortex and pineal glands are larger and more developed than humans. How was that something that you were able to figure out, and how does that come into play with the Sasquatch, do you think?
Okay, ours are way smaller, and theirs are way bigger. He could, like I was telling you, I guess it's called telepathy.
Yep.
I'm not sure if that's the. He could go right in you, man. Pshook! And here's another thing too. Watch. Be careful what you ask for. You just might get it, because this telepathy thing, it doesn't just stop in one day. Oh boy. Oh boy. So you better think about things that you want to do because, if you want to make contact with them, he could get in there telepathically, but it's not one day. He was contacting me for about a month and a half, and I was in Calaveras County, hundreds of miles away from where he was until he left me alone. Because huh, it's a longer story than we'll have to go to another one. But you know what? The only reason why he allowed me to do it is because I was taking care of certain things that he needed taken care of. Broken bottles along everywhere. People, come on, man. Broken bottles not only hurt Sasquatch, they hurt us, they hurt all wildlife. And when you go into pristine rivers, lakes, wherever you're at, you know what? Pack it in, pack it out. Because check this out. I've taken out 26 bottles from the river right here. And that's one of the bargains I made with them. I told, I need your tracks. And he called me what? He didn't even know what the heck I'm talking about, man. I go, I'll take care of these. And he know what those are. He said, oh yeah, hurt feet. I'm like, yes, hurt feet, man. So, that was a little bargain I had to make, man. It wasn't easy. And it still isn't, right? But you know what? I'm here. I'm happy. And you know what? If I make contact with them again right now, I'll be more even happier again. And like I said, man, I hope I make it back. And hopefully, hey, one of your listeners, you have the technology that I'm looking for. I'll drive to you. Need 3D laser scanning. I need X-rays. I'll drive. I'll go anywhere in this country. It makes no difference to me. I'm a serious man, so you know. But you know what? I still have my sense of humor.
Right, which is super
I'm
important
still
in
good.
life.
I'm still good, man.
Is there a way people can contact you if they do have that technology?
Yeah, you could contact me. Check this out. I have a YouTube channel, believe it or not,
Okay.
where I'm putting footage in little by little. Look, I'm slow. I'm like turtle Earth. I don't go fast. Technology is really difficult for me. I could barely even talk to you over the phone half the time, and then computers, I don't even know what to do. I'm a caveman. So, but I have this YouTube channel. My godson made it for me actually because I teach other classes. I teach a lot of things: Native American art skills, tracking, mapping. My repertoire of things that I'm teaching is not like 35 years. I've been just teaching, a few subjects. I teach all subjects in nature. So he made me this thing. I'm totally appreciative of that. And it's called Untamed Science now with me. And I'm Noxian Nature, Stephen Noxian Nature. And I'll be posting stuff on there. So you could contact me that way. But you know what? My email is noxiumnature@gmail.com. It's NOIXIUM nature@gmail.com. They could contact me through you now. You have my phone number. They could contact me directly through you.
And the reason I ask for other ways of contact is because I am swamped in ways that you could not even imagine. But yes, so we will have the direct ways to contact Brother Nature in the description of the episode. But wow, it has been such an incredible conversation. Yeah, I hope we do get to talk again in the future. I've many more conversations I think we could have about things we barely touched the surface on. But I do hope that you have a safe trip, that you're able to find again what you're looking for out there.
Okay, check this out. I want to also mention too, right? That my time with this Sasquatch isn't one day. That was a 10-day expedition I had that last time. It was 10 days and nights. I stood with it outside. And yeah, that's how I was allowed to get that. Oh, but this is where I was getting at. Check this out. Our next time that we talk, I want to talk to you. I want to tell you and your listeners what happened the first night, right? Because this happened during the first day. All that stuff we've been talking about first night, and then like I was telling you, I was with it 10 straight days after that, and I'm totally grateful and gifted because it allowed me. We were talking about that earlier. It allowed me to get these tracks because that is part of day two story. It's the weirdest thing ever. Anyway, I hope that I get to talk to you again and your listeners. I totally appreciate you having me on your program.
Absolutely.
I am all excited now. Thanks for firing me up. I feel like you're the coach, and here I go. I'm like, ooh, time to go.
Absolutely. We'll be talking to you again. Thank you so much for coming on, Brother Nature. I do greatly appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Hi there, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing great. Are you coming up to share a Bigfoot experience that you've had?
Sure, I'd love to tell a little quick story.
All right, go right ahead, sir.
So I was up in Harbin Hot Springs, just north of St. Helena, Napa area in California, NorCal.
Okay.
And we were up there. It's pretty remote, and I was doing a hike. And as I was going through the hike, I had some stuff thrown in our general direction. And when we looked back, we really didn't see anything, but definitely seemed a little bit off. I can't say I saw I saw Bigfoot. It certainly could have been someone throwing rocks at me, but that seems also a little off. But yeah, the whole hike through, I just felt like I was being watched. I felt like something was wrong. We made it back down towards where we were a little closer towards the facility and that they could hear us. And so we weren't as intimidated as much. But certainly when I was up on that top of that hill, going through that game trail, like something wasn't right. And when something came flying past my head, missed me by like a foot, it wasn't right. There was something out there.
Wow. What year was that again?
This was probably like 2019, 2020, give or take.
Gotcha. Did you get a look for how big the item was that was thrown towards you?
No, it whizzed past.
Okay.
It came through pretty fast, and it wasn't a boulder, but certainly wasn't a pebble. There was like one or two that came. It wasn't just like one rock, but when they hit, like there was like a thud or two. It was certainly enough to get my attention. And the lady friend that I was with, we certainly noticed. It wasn't like it was like some other person hiking the trail, like, hey, let's mess with this other person. Which, why would anyone do that anyway?
That doesn't make sense at all. It sounded like you started to look into the subject after that. Did you do any research to see if there had been any other Bigfoot interactions in this area?
Actually, no. I hadn't. I have not.
Gotcha. I appreciate you sharing real quick. I'm
Thanks.
looking up something here. Lake County does have one Bigfoot experience reported on the BFRO, so that's interesting. That's near Middletown, California. I appreciate you coming up. Is this a story I could share on the Bigfoot podcast that I have?
Yeah, no problem with that, bud.
All right, thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Hi there, sir. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Can you hear me good?
Yep, you sound great. Did you have a story to share today, sir?
How much time you got?
We got all the time you need, sir.
Okay, I'm just going to start from the beginning
Yes, sir.
because I've had a lot of experience. I used to live, I can go ahead and tell you pretty much the area where it was without divulging too much, but I live in Indiana and I lived in the Knobs, in the Floyd Knobs. There was a report, but let me tell my story first and then I'll get to the
Sure.
report because that happened after the fact. But I lived in the Knobs and I had an orchard in my yard. I had apples, peaches, had a grapevine, had a little garden and stuff like that. But where I lived, a major highway cut through, but there was like a way, like an overpass for, I would say, animals to cross because it was kind of like a crossing to come into the. They divided the woods, let's put it that way, with a highway. But there was a way for animals to get through and stuff. But the strange thing is, and I never paid no attention till I had something happen, but we lived in a trailer that was kind of on a hillside, and the back window was like, I would say, at least 8 foot off the ground, 8 to 9 foot off the ground. And my wife would always tell me she sees like pig eyes in the window. And I just brushed it off as she was seeing stuff. Okay. Further on down the line, like I was telling you, we got the orchard and all that stuff. We had the apples and stuff. I'd always have to pick the apples up where I could cut the grass because it was time for the apples to start falling and stuff, and they were falling. But I come home one day and I was going to cut the grass and I was going to pick the apples up. And I asked my wife, I said, thanks for, actually I told her, I said, thanks for picking the apples up for me. She said, I didn't pick them up. It just seemed strange that they wound up missing because nobody lived right by me or anything. And you could say deer ate them or whatever, but I doubt that because they were even off the tree. But the strange thing is, I had this grapevine in the back of my house where I lived, and I went to go pick the grapes, and all the grapes were gone. And there was this big war spot back there behind the grapes where it looked like something had been sitting there. Whatever, it was huge. I would sometimes mow behind there, but I'd only do it like every couple weeks. And you could tell it's something that sit there and wallered this all out. And whatever it was took the grapes. We're sitting there and we're in our living room, and my chair sits about 3 feet from the door. And my wife was on the couch, and this tall, dark creature walks across my door. And I see it. It's within, it could have reached in and grabbed me. That's how close it was because we had our door wide open because it was late in the year and the breeze was coming in. And we always left the door wide open. But it didn't turn its neck when it looked dead at me. But it looked right at me and in my eyes like it was looking through my, and I seen the facial part of it. But the strange thing is, me and my wife both seen it at the same time, and we both turned at each other and because it walked by, and we turned at each other and we both said at the same time, "Did you see that?" And of course, we were dumbfounded and stuff. And she said, "Get up and shut the door." I'm not going to use the words I used here because I don't want to get you bananaed. But basically told her, no, the heck with that, in some other words, because it physically froze me in my chair. But that was so strange and so scary. But for months, I wouldn't even go outside in the dark without taking a gun. But that's when I started getting into looking into and studying it. Now, this is back in the early 90s when this happened. But the strange thing is, I had this van that I worked out of, and I always parked it up by my door. I was sitting in my living room, And my nephews come to the house, and they said when they pulled in the driveway, they thought I was standing by my, I'm 6'5", I'm a big guy. They thought I was standing by my van. And they said that they couldn't understand why I ran off in the woods. And they were hollering at me. And I didn't hear them saying anything. I was inside, but they come in and was telling me this. As time kept going on, my youngest son, I lived on a dead end street, and they did have some houses up on the road, probably a quarter mile up the road, and the boys would go play basketball. All of them come back running back to the house, saying they heard something scream in the woods, and they said it, and this is what they told me. They said it sounded like Chewbacca, from Star Wars. And I didn't pay no mind, but I went up there and took a look, didn't hear nothing, all that stuff. But getting further on down the line, about 2 weeks after that, there was a news article from the Banner Gazette, I think it was, that was in New Albany. I lived in the Knobs, which is part of New Albany. But this woman claims that she saw a hairy creature sitting on a log as she was going up Corden Pike. And that Corden Pike is on the other side of where I live at. So whatever it was, probably that. But let me get a little deeper, because that's why I asked you if you had time, because I never put no mind into anything. And as far as what I saw, I never seen nothing like that before in my life. But I'm an avid hunter. I've been hunting pretty much all my life, and I ain't never seen nothing like that in the woods. But I got permission to hunt the woods that was next to my house there. And it was across the field from my house and in the woods there. But in these woods had like runoff from where, I don't know, I guess whenever it rained, the water would run that way. But I got to hunting down in the woods, and I followed that creek bed because it was soft and it wouldn't make no noise. But I get down at the bottom of the creek bed, and I never explored this area before, but I seen a pond, and there was like sticker bushes all the way around it. And there was only one opening. And it was only like, I would say, maybe 3 foot wide. So I walked up to it, and I seen these little bitty footprints. They were probably like children's footprints in the mud right there at that water source. And I'm thinking, man, what's kids doing out here? I didn't put two and two together. Like I said, I never ever thought about Bigfoot or even heard of it mentioned until I seen it. I think it was Leonard Nimoy had talked about it on In Search Of, I believe. But I just said it was a hoax. But that kind of dumbfounded me, so I started looking up stuff. But now I've got all this time that I've looked it all up, and let's put it this way: I moved from where I was. We had many experiences there. My kids have come running home from the creek, and they've seen them. But getting further on down the line, I moved into Corden, Indiana. And my mom owns, she used to, but the tallest mountain that's around here in Corden. Her house sat right on top of it. And on the other side is Indian Creek. And I took my wife down there, and we're down there. I just wanted to fish, and I was going to grill a couple hamburgers. I took the grill down there, and because it's down deep and kind of like in the valley there, and the creek's there, and we're sitting there, and all of a sudden we hear this whoop from across the creek. And she said, "What is that?" I said, "If I told you, you wouldn't believe me." And then behind me, I hear another whoop. And then to the right of me, I hear another whoop. My wife says, "I want to go," because I told her what I thought it was. She said, "I want to go." And about that time she said that, I guess one of them had pushed a tree over right behind us, and it thrashed down the hillside towards us. It was a huge tree. And of course, I was still cooking, and I was almost finished cooking the burger. I said, I'm going to eat my burger. I said, I ain't leaving until I get this burger up. She said, I want to go. So I had a medium rare burger that day, but I packed up everything because she was scared. So I got to thinking, because we had to drive down there, you couldn't get down there unless you had four-wheel drive. It was that rugged down there. But I got to thinking, they were crossing that creek because then behind there was a big ridge, and it kind of cut straight down to the ground. Something like that could climb that ridge and have a good high spot to not be bothered and be able to. And I've been on top of that ridge because it's the top of the mountain, but you can't go over the side of it because it's so treacherous. You'd almost fall off of it. But we went on back. But I got to thinking, I'm like, when we drove down there, we probably separated them because they were trying to cross the creek to get to that ridge. And I found a nest down there too. And I wasn't really into it real bad, but I am now. I do a little bit of investigating and stuff. I'm not going to tell my name because I don't really want to put it out there. But I've been doing this for a lot of years. But like I was trying to tell you, I found a nest down there in these bottoms, shoved back in a corner, and you could tell that's what it is. And nothing that I know of in Indiana, we don't have bears per se in this area. They're further north, but you could tell it was a nest of some sort, and sticks were piled up with an entrance under it. But I almost believe, and then I hunt all this area, and I found prints on top of that hill and trees pushed over, trying to block you from going through that trail. Because there's a deer trail up there on top of the hill behind my mom's house. But I found a 16-inch print up there, and then I found another one that had like a slender spot where the arch is. So I thought maybe it was a male and a female that walked through there. I got lucky and got pictures of those. But the thing about it is, at my mom's, like I said, it's up on top of the hill, and she had a metal shed or garage that was up there, and we always had a fire pit right beside it. And I was out there one night, ain't nobody there but my mom and her husband, and he was in the bed a lot. He didn't get up and move. He was pretty well down. And where the fire pit is, you can see my wife in the window, and you can see my mom sitting on the sofa. And they could pretty well see the fire from where I was. But we had a storm come through there like maybe a week prior to this, and it blowed this metal dog pen we had down the hillside. And I kept hearing these rocks hit this pan. This pan was down inside of these briars, so I didn't go down there and get it. But I kept hearing these rocks hitting pan, and it was intentional. Now, you got to remember, I'm on a hillside. This old man that my mom's with, her husband, which was my stepdad, he was in the bed. He couldn't move. He had arthritis and stuff so bad he couldn't even move. We were the only people there. But I walked over there to investigate because it kept happening. And it's dark. So I walk over there to look, and behind me is the garage. And about that time, all these acorns start bouncing off the roof of the garage behind me. They were playing with me. And I wasn't scared because at that point I've been investigating them and stuff like that online and doing my own hiking and stuff. I've been doing this for a lot of years now, but I kicked back from it. I don't do it as much anymore. But that happened. And then I'm sitting here one evening right before dark, and we had this field you could see down the hillside close to the road. And I'm sitting there, And I watch these deer come out of the wood, out of this little patch of woods real fast. And they're looking backwards. Something's after them. And I'm thinking to myself, man, there's something going on down there. And the dogs started barking. And the deer went in this other patch across from that. And I looked down there, and by this tree, I could see a dark silhouette moving in and out, moving like side to side. And I'm sitting there watching it, and I tried to zoom in with binoculars because I'm sitting right there at the garage. And I got binoculars and all hunting and fishing equipment and stuff. And I tried to zoom in and get a picture of it, and I couldn't see it. But I turned around, and as I turned back around to look, I seen something dark, real big, go in that patch of woods where them deer went in, like real fast. It was so fast that, like within a blink of an eye. And then I heard that deer squeal. I heard one of the deer squeal, and one of them come out. I wasn't going to go down there and check it out. I didn't want to go down in there and see what happened because I wasn't going to mess with it and stuff. But that was kind of spooky. But I get into this Bigfoot group, and I'm not going to mention that name neither. But we get together for a camp out, and I get to the camp. I'm the first one to get there, me and my wife. And it's a forestry around here. And we get there, and we're the only people there in this campsite, in the whole camp. There's nobody there. And back then I was tent camping. I started pulling out all the stuff to set it up. And I happened to walk around the truck, and I could see through this channel of trees. And I see this swing set that's at the park. I see this swing set swinging back and forth with nobody on it. And I'm thinking the wind, but there was only one swing set doing that. And there was another one sitting there by itself. And there's nobody at this park. So I start looking, and I look beside this tree, and I see this big hairy creature with his hands on the tree watching this swing. And you could see his cone head and everything, conical head. It's some true stuff there, just like the first one I told you about walking across my door. That scared the crap out of me, but I said, honey, come over here and check this out. And of course, you couldn't really see it unless you looked through this channel of trees. I guess it thought it wasn't being seen and whatever. But when she seen it, she was like, I'm ready to go. I don't want to stay here. And I don't blame her, but I told her it'll be all right. I said, I ain't never had nothing happen. She knows the tree that fell was the only thing that we really had happen. But I've got stuff that's happened to me that I'm probably forgetting about. But I wanted to tell them that part. Many years I've been doing it. I've had a lot of strange stuff happen. I don't know if Greg Yost or if you heard of him.
Greg is a gentleman I've tried to talk to for years, and I've never been able to get through to him.
I'm a good friend of Greg's.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to talk to him.
Me and him do a lot of camp outs and stuff, but I'm not going to ride off his tail. I got my own stuff. But
Absolutely.
He's a good gentleman. He's got a lot of knowledge on it, and he was with me one day. We was at a campsite, and right next to the forestry, there's a major highway, and we're sitting there, and we hear all this commotion. Then we hear fire trucks and ambulances out on the highway, and I look on the hillside, and there's one sitting on the hillside. And if you ever talk to him, he'll tell you about it. And this one was tan. It had a tan color to it. It was almost, I don't know, it wasn't brown, it was tan. Either it was the sun glistening off of it, but it was sitting there. Whatever happened on that highway must have spooked it up on the hillside there. And we could see its back and his head, and it was moving his head and looking, trying to look around stuff and see what was going on. And it didn't know we was watching it because its back was turned to us. But I'm sure if you ever do get a chance to talk to him, he'll tell you about that. But we sat there and watched that for a half an hour. and that was pretty good. But getting back to what I was telling you about that swing, we all went down there and looked, and we found 16-inch footprints down there and going down the hillside because it was pretty leafy. But right there by the tree, it just had rain probably right before we got there a couple days. So there was a good mud print there where the rain had washed down the side of the hill, and you could see the print. And like 10 people seen it, the print. But yeah, we had a pretty good time out there. But where I live at now, I've had them bang on my back door. And I know birds and owls and stuff like that will fly around and try to get moths or whatever around your lights and stuff like that. But my deck sits about probably 6 foot off the ground, the floor of it. And whatever it was reached its arm up 3 to 4 feet, banged on my door. And my deck goes out like almost 10 foot and then goes out probably another 14. And it banged on our door. Whatever it was, I didn't get to see it. But there used to be a set of woods across the street from our house. And we used to see the silhouettes all the time over there. So finally, me and my grandson decided we was going to walk over there and check them woods out. It's for this gentleman bought this property over here. We no sooner get in about maybe 30, 40 yards, and my grandson didn't even know nothing about Bigfoot as far as Bigfoot was concerned. And I told him, I said, we're going to do some Bigfoot, and we're going to look and see if we can find anything. We found some broken trees. But I was walking, and he said, look out, Papa, you're getting ready to step on a print. And we found a print right across the street from my house. We get further investigating and going further in, and I got pictures of that, but it was on another phone that totally died on me. But I've got some pictures. I've got a picture I want to send you of another experience that I had somewhere else. But I get back there and I look, and when I get further back in there, there's like this big dip. It's like looks like looked like maybe a pond could have been there at one time. But it was probably about 4 foot deep. But it had a lot of activity down in there. Something had been moving down in there, and it had this stench that I can't describe it. It was like dead, skunky, moldy, whatever down in it. And I got down in it and I looked, and only thing is my head. When I looked, my head was right level with the ground, and I could see my house through the woods from across the street. And I'm thinking to myself, man, they've been sitting here watching me all this time, right here in this spot. Back then, I was into all this gifting stuff. We're talking probably 15 years ago. I was into gifting, doing the gift thing. Everybody says it works. Well, I tried that, and I gifted something on a stump out there. And the strange thing is, I come back 2 days later, there was a deer bone that was laying on the spot that I gifted, and I can't remember what I gifted. It was something simple, something stupid. I think it was a Hot Wheel or something. But it was gone. And that deer bone was there, but the deer bone was broken off, shaped like a knife, shaped like what a knife would look like, a dagger. And it was real sharp. I didn't take it, but I stabbed it in that stump and left it there. And I came back a couple more days later, and it was gone. But when I went back, I decided to go to the right of the woods and investigate a little further. And I found this spot where there was a big old pile of walnut shells. I mean, about probably 4 foot wide and maybe a foot off the ground, where they had been eating these walnuts, and they were using a stone to break them open. 2 stones. There was 2 stones there that they was using to break them open. And I left them stones there. I thought about getting them, but I left them there. And that spot's probably still back there. I never did get no pictures of that spot. I probably should have. I still can if it's still back there. But this guy took and bought this property and built a house back over there. And it's not even probably 40 yards from that little pit I was telling you about. That pit was probably maybe 10 by 20, maybe, that was down 4 foot in the ground. But they didn't make it. It was obviously there from something else. But all that happened. But I was sitting in the living room, and I got a chair that kind of faces toward the door. I like to be able to look out the door. I'm one of them strange people, and I like to see what's outside. But I'm sitting there, and this is before this guy built this house over there. I'm sitting there, and this little bitty pebble, I happen to turn my head around and see this pebble hit the window of my storm door. And I got up fast enough to watch it sit and spin on my porch out front. And it was spinning. Something had thrown that. And the weird thing is I was finding, I still got the stone, but the weird thing is I was finding like leaves putting my doorknobs in my truck. I had a truck, and they were putting big leaves, big bright orange leaves in the crevice of my handle on my truck. And it happened to me a couple times, and I was like, they're playing with me. But we had this spot out in the backyard, and we always throwed like old rinds and stuff from watermelons and stuff like that back there, because if you put stuff in your trash out here, coons will get in it. I always just throwed it out there. We quit doing it. We quit throwing stuff out there because we started like a compost pile. And I come home one day, and that tree that was right there by where we was throwing all that stuff out, was broke over about 7 foot up in the air. Just snapped. It was a cedar tree. It was snapped in half. And we didn't have no storms come through there. And there's a whole row of trees. If that storm would have hit them trees, it'd have broke all of them if there had been a storm. But we had that happen. And my grandson come over one time, and him and my wife were out. I've got a field right here by my house. It's probably maybe 4 or 5 acres. And they watched one go up the hillside out here. And in the evening times, in the summertime, when it's hot, you can see like silhouettes like they're up there sitting on that hill, because the breeze does blow up there. It hits that side, and I always see them silhouettes. But I've never been back there in them woods, and the forestry. It's part of the forestry. I could probably go back there anytime I want to, but I don't want to do that because I've got a spot up the road that I was doing. I was doing a different type of gifting. I was doing like crystals and stuff.
Okay.
And that's another story I can get into. But I got a spot up the road that I stacked a few stones and I put some crystals on. Well, I came back to check that, and there was like 2 or 3 crystals gone, and one of them was on the ground. So I picked up the one and put it back on there, and I left, and I came back probably about a week later, and there was 2 more crystals put back on there. But that day I decided to look because I found a footprint. And I've been hunting all my life. I know the difference between a man print and whatever. I started following this print, and I followed it, and I kept following it, and I wound up back in the same spot. It scared me to death because really what was going on, it was following me. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I realized that at that time. So I got out of the woods because that was one of the first times I ever really got scared, besides when it walked across my doorway. I felt like it was stalking me. You know what I'm saying? It's a weird feeling.
My goodness, a lot going on.
Oh, yeah. The weird thing is when I was like 18 years old, I talked to this psychic lady, and she predicted how many kids I'd have and told me that I would meet up with an Indian chief and I'd know who it was. And his name was Chief Tall Oak. And when I see him, he'll be real tall. The thing that walked across my door, I believe they're a type of Indian in a sense, a different type. But what walked across my door had to have been at least 9 foot tall because my steps went down 2.5 steps to my sidewalk, and my door was 6'5" tall. Think about it. That's 9 foot. When he walked right across my sidewalk, within 7 feet of me. He could have reached in and grabbed me if that's what he wanted to do. And that right there, that's when I really started getting into it. And I've been doing it ever since. I kicked back for about 5 years, and my mom died and stuff like that, so I ain't done nothing in about 5 years. And I really ain't had nothing happen around here, except for every now and then I'll hear that owl call that I know is not an owl. They mimic owl calls. And I'm gonna tell you this other story too, because this is a good one. And I don't care if anybody believes me; they don't have to if they don't want to. I don't have no reason to lie. But I go hunting out in this. It's probably about 20 miles from here, and it's got a cabin sitting on it that's setting off across from a lake. I took my wife to this cabin. We had to clean it up and everything to stay in it because my buddy oversees the property and nobody's been there in a while. But we're sitting there, and I got a picture of a Sasquatch that I'm going to send you, and I'll give you an opportunity to look at it. But the thing about it is, we were staying at this cabin, and we built us a fire outside, and it was almost close to getting dark. And I seen this movement over across the lake, and I seen the tree moving. I know a buckle's scrape its antlers and all that stuff, but that ain't what this was. It was a dark figure, and we kept watching it for about a half an hour. And finally, I got my phone out, and I zoomed in with my phone and started snapping pictures. And I got a few good pictures. But as soon as I took the last picture I took, this loud scream come. It penetrated you. You know, it was like, whoa, you know. And then all of a sudden, all these coyotes started going off. Now, where I'm at in this cabin, there's 350 acres there, and it all runs back into the Hoosier National Forest. There's been a lot of sightings up there, but and when we first got there, I got to backtrack sometimes because I do forget things. I'm 57. I'm not saying I got Alzheimer's or anything, but when we first got there, my wife, you had to park in behind the cabin, and my wife went back there to get something. She said, honey, there's a black man out there in the woods. And I'm like, man, no, there ain't nobody around here for a couple miles. That's when all that happened. But getting further into it, obviously, I'm not scared of them anymore. But I hunt these woods, and we got like a realtree come out to this property and put a bunch of deer blinds on stilts, put 2 of them out here on this property. And I got a 243 with a scope. I'm looking, and I'm in this deer blind, and I'm looking, and I see this movement, and I put it on a scope, and it's a gray Sasquatch sitting Indian style on the ground, looking towards the deer blind. Now, this is going to sound strange, and I don't want to go too far into the woo because that's a little bit woo when you start talking like this, but in my mind, it said to me, the deer are behind you. I turn around in this blind because it's got windows all the way around it. I turn around and there's 10 deer behind me. So, of course, I turn around and I pop one of them and it takes off running. And I hear this whoop where it ran toward. And I'm watching it because there's a hillside going up and I'm watching it. And where that whooped, I didn't see anything there, but the deer went the other direction. And then I heard another whoop. And then I didn't see the deer anymore after that. But I hit that deer and I went to track that deer. And there was a heck of a trail of blood. And I tracked that deer for a mile and that deer just up and disappeared. And the only thing I can think is one of them throwed it over its shoulder and the blood drained down and hit the ground because I didn't see any prints from the deer per se. And I didn't see no feet print neither. You know what I'm saying? Which was strange. But before that happened, me and my buddy was in that very same deer blind. And we started hearing a bunch of strange hollering, and it didn't even sound like a Bigfoot to me. And I said, maybe it's Bigfoot. About that time, whatever it was come crashing through the trees, and you could see the trees moving, but you couldn't see nothing. And I had my phone out, and I started snapping pictures because at the time we was taking pictures of the scenery around it with our phones. And I kept snapping pictures, and I don't know how far you believe in this stuff or anything, but I think I caught one in mid cloak, if that's what they call it, cloaking.
Awesome! Yeah, sure.
In that picture, and I got that picture too. I'll show you, and you can make up your own mind on that too. But you can tell it's not part of the foliage or nothing. It's going out of visual, but I'll be glad to share those with you. I'll send them to you on the what is it? Would you say
It's bigfootsociety@gmail.com.
Oh, okay, that's easy enough. Yeah, I'll send them to you on that. But man, I've had a lot of stuff. Back when I was 11 years old, I used to cut through this set of woods all the time to go to the grocery store, and it was a little trail that even the deer used. And I used to feel like I was being followed back there. And back then, I seen all them stick structures and stuff where they break stuff over and do all kinds of stuff like that. And I never paid no mind. I never thought nothing about it. But I always felt like I was being followed back there, even at 11. Some people say, I don't know if I'm just gifted or whatever with them feeling like they're free around me to do things. They say some people are, but I've had a lot of encounters. I forgot more than I'm telling you. Even with Greg Yost, we've had some good times. But I pretty much told you all the good ones. I'll leave that up to y'all whether you believe it or not. But
I love it, man. It's incredible lifetime of accounts, and I can definitely tell that's just the start. There's probably some other stuff that you have forgotten, as you said. But thank you so much for coming up and for sharing, and I hope to get that email from you. I'll keep an eye out for that. But is this a conversation I'd be able to share on my podcast as well?
Oh, sure. Heck, people will probably recognize me. I just don't want to put my name out there anymore. I jumped out of. I'm just going to tell you this. I jumped out of all the groups I used to be in because of all the drama. You get people like what we had just before I come on talking stupid, and if you don't experience it, you don't believe it. And I don't care if people believe me or not. I've had people tell me I was crazy, but then there's people that know me, that's been out with me and know I can find them if I want to. I quit doing all that looking, like I said, about 5 years ago. And the reason I've done that is because I feel like we as people are to understand something. It's not that we don't need to be in the woods. We got every right to be in the woods. When you go in the woods and you keep going constantly, you're interfering with their life. We live a different life. So that's another reason why I haven't went back here in these woods behind my house, because I want them to feel like that's a free zone for them, because that woods ties into where I have done some research in the past. I'm just trying not to do anything close to my house, because I do get activity here every now and then, and I don't want them to feel like they need to be scared. I think people need to understand, don't go out there every day, every weekend and bug them, man, because they got to eat and do all kinds of stuff. They got to do what they need to do, too. But I appreciate you having me on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Maybe I'll get back on another time and we'll talk about something else.
Hey, there you go. I look forward to it. And yeah, I'll keep an eye out for your email. Thanks for coming up, sir.
You're welcome, partner. Be good.
You too. Wow, that was absolutely fantastic. My goodness. What a fantastic amount of things he has experienced.
Before we wrap this episode, I want to say something directly to a very specific group of listeners. If you're in the military, any branch or forces, and if you've seen something that no one can explain, or if you're a national park ranger or forestry worker who's been told to stay quiet, or if you're a pilot who's seen something strange down on the ground, or if you're with the FBI, a federal agency, or working intelligence, and you stumbled upon something you're not allowed to talk about, and if you're a firefighter, paramedic, or search and rescue responder who's heard screams or found tracks that didn't make sense, if you're in the logging industry, on a remote oil field, or a trucker with government contracts, and you've had something happen that you've never told a soul, and if you're a biologist, a wildlife specialist, or a field researcher under contract who has found evidence you're not allowed to report, if you're a pastor, a missionary, or someone on a spiritual retreat, and you saw something that shook your faith, or if you work in the shadows, CIA, NSA, or anything with clearance, and you've seen what the public hasn't, then I want to talk to you. Even if it's anonymous, you can reach me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. The world needs to hear what you've been forced to carry alone, and you're not alone. You've got the story. We've got the mic. See you in the woods. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. Every encounter we share reminds us that the world is bigger and stranger than we think, and that the truth is often hiding just beyond the tree line. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, hit the bell so you don't miss the next episode, and share this with a friend who's into mysteries, monsters, or the unexplained. And if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcast, please follow the show there and leave us a 5-star positive review, because all that helps more people discover the show. And remember, if you or someone you know has had a Bigfoot sighting, please, I'd love to hear from you. So email me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com and let's start the conversation. If you haven't gotten a chance yet, check out our membership community over at www.bigfootsocietypodcast.com. And that's where you can hear tomorrow's episode today, early and ad-free, and members-only episodes every week. Also, it's a place to connect with other people that are into the Bigfoot subject as much as you are. Thanks again for following along with the Bigfoot Society. Until next time, keep your eyes open, trust your gut, and never stop asking what else might be out there. And see you in the woods.